Hello, I'm Jason. Welcome to episode of Cigars and. Today, we're going to talk about cop shows, the good and the bad. Today I'm smoking a Camacho Candela, one of the green wrapper cigars. Not my normal go-to, but there's a reason why I'm smoking it. And I'm drinking a cup of Giavelli coffee, one of my go-tos. So cop shows, let's talk about cop shows. Growing up, we love cop shows. But when you become a cop, or you enter the realm of firearms instructing especially, you get pretty perturbed by what you see on TV for cop shows. Especially when their fingers on the trigger all the time. Forget about the Hollywood movies for a second, just we're talking about the TV shows. And they're so lame. For example, remember the old ones where they would show them handcuff the prisoner, then handcuff the prisoner to themselves, essentially disabling their arm. Now, I've been law enforcement for a while, and my father's in law enforcement, my grandfather's in law enforcement. I don't ever remember that being taught anywhere, because as soon as you handcuff yourself to the person, you're now disabled as well. Now, we've seen where you've handcuffed the person to something else, like a railing or something to hold them in place, but never to yourself. That's just weird. One of the bad things you'll see in some of the old ones. But what's some other things we see in bad cop shows? Well, everyone's beautiful, like they just stepped out of a magazine. Don't get me wrong, there's some good looking cops. But let's face it, when you sit in a cruiser 10 to 12 hours and you have to snack on food from convenience stores, and you work shift work, you don't get a lot of sleep, you tend to put on a little bit of weight. And you don't always look the best. Your hair isn't always perfectly coiffed. Now, there are some of those cops that always make sure their hair looks good, they wear cologne. But when you watch some of these TV shows, everyone looks like that. Growing up, there's a few we like to watch. One I still enjoy watching every now and then is In the Heat of the Night. That's a good cop show. Another really good one I enjoy watching was Dragnet, because everything was based on actual cases. And that was a detective show. But then Jack Webb also produced Adam 12. I've recently fell in love with Adam 12 because it is also based on all actual cases. Of course, it follows mainly two guys. But the show is so good, just watching their interaction, because it's typical cop interaction, especially some of their humor and the way they talk to each other. And now if you compare what they do to today's standards for procedure, some of it's identical, hasn't changed. Other things have changed because of what we've learned. Supreme Court rulings, sure, a lot of that's changed. But it is interesting watching even Adam 12. I'm like, hey, yeah, I used to do that same thing. We still do that same technique. We still use that. So it's really cool to see that. And Adam 12 was one of the better ones about calling for backup, also using the radio, using the proper terminology. Also, one of the things they did was, oh yeah, they didn't point their gun at each other. I mean, this is a big thing for us as firearms instructors. When someone walks in front of you to handcuff whatever, you point the gun down. You don't bring it, you don't leave it there as they walk in front to handcuff person. You get your gun point on the person, the suspect, your buddy goes walking, you point your gun down as they walk across, if they have to walk across, which a lot of times you do. But in most shows, the gun stays pointed at them. In fact, you'll see them wave their gun everywhere, point, talk to people with it. Hate that. You never saw that in Adam 12, at least none of the episodes I've seen. Now the reason I'm smoking the Camacho Candela cigar. One of my favorite cop shows. Still on today. You can catch on MeTV on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Columbo. Peter Falk's Columbo. Always smoked a green Candela cigar most of the time. He walked around smoking, show up to crime scene smoking. You never do that today. You never drop ash or leave any trace evidence at a crime scene today. But he did. And in the later years, people kind of got on about bringing a cigar in there. But he always had it with him, even if it wasn't lit. It was part of the trademark thing. Now, what's fascinating about Columbo is you always knew who the killer was for the most part because unless you missed the beginning, you knew what was going on. But that was the main person he was talking to. Columbo played dumb. This is the part that's great. He played dumb and people bought into it. I can't tell you how many times as a street cop I would play dumb doing investigations. And sometimes I deal with very highly educated people. Teachers, professors, doctors, and of course students, college students. They think, oh, he's just a dumb street cop. I can fool him. Playing dumb is great, and Columbo did it so well because it gets people to what we call regurgitate at the mouth. They just sit there and spew out information. Even in interview techniques, they teach the Columbo method. You play dumb. I'm just not getting it. Can you help me understand it? So you were here, and you did what? And here, and get them to say the story over and over again because they're going to trip up. They're going to say a different way. They're going to change their story. The Columbo technique is a great technique. Now, it doesn't work all the time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it is the perfect technique. Use different techniques with different suspects. And Columbo always had it wrapped up within an hour and a half episode, of course. Sometimes I think the episodes are 2 hours with commercials. My point being, the technique worked great, the Columbo technique. And he always treated people decent, but he let them think he was dumb. I know a lot of cops. I grew up around cops. I can count one hand how many of them were actually dumb, and they usually didn't make it. Cops are not dumb. To be a cop, you have to be pretty smart. Yeah, my dad always told me, if you can have book smarts, that's great, but street smarts is more important. It's true. He said, if you can have both, fantastic. But street smarts will keep you alive. To be a cop, you don't need a lot of learned book smarts, as they call it. You don't need to be well studied. You gotta have street smarts. You gotta know how to read people. You gotta know how to fight. That sound you hear in the background is my youngest, Eddie, 10 months old. Hey boy. He comes out to Daddy's boasting hole with him, his shed, and watches Daddy smoke cigars and talks to Daddy. So Peter Falk, one of the greatest detectives of all time. Oh, you can keep your Sherlock Holmes. He had a style, but quite honestly, I think Columbo's style was much better. And why did he never get a new car? How did they even keep that car running throughout the series? My goodness. I swear they must have had to push it to places sometimes because the car looked like it never could run. I will say, This is a pretty good cigar for a Candela. Yeah. Now, I don't think Peter Falk smoked expensive cigars on the set because he's always going through them quite often. Let's face it, we have better cigars today than we did back then. Quality, production line, quality control, the amount of different tobaccos from different regions around the world. There's no comparison. No comparison. Cigars today are by far better than they ever were through history. People disagree with me, but most tobacconists know it's just because of the quality control and the free market. Really, what comes down to it is the demand for high quality cigars. That's the biggest thing. Well, this is a good cigar, this Camacho Candela. I'm enjoying it. Oh, you're too young to enjoy it. You got quite a few years to go, little bear. Mm-hmm. Say hi, Eddie. You're the one making all the noises behind the camera. You my camera crew, huh? This is Eddie Zalva, named after his great-grandfather, Eduardo Zalva. That's right. Who smoked cigars all the time. Yeah. And one day you'll smoke cigars with Daddy, won't ya? Oh, what's that? Daddy put up a new flag? What you see? Huh? Oh, you like watching the smoke go up, don't ya? Yes, you do. Wave to the camera. Wave to the camera. Say hi. He knows what a camera is. He likes to look at it, but he doesn't understand how it works from this end. Your daddy tell you a story? Tell you a story about Daddy's abuelo? How when Daddy would go visit his abuelo, he would always play with his lighter. Whenever Daddy lit his lighter, the flame was so big. I swear my abuelo always kept it fueled up. Always put extra fuel on it. So as soon as Daddy lit it, it'd be a huge flame. And then he would try to get Daddy to stick his finger in a cigar cutter to chop off Daddy's finger, but Daddy wouldn't fall for that. And your great abuelo had one of those big old Zenith TVs that sat on the floor that didn't work. And then another TV on top of it with stacks of VHS movies on both sides. That's right. So he'd sit there in his chair, smoke his cigars, watch his movies over and over again. Where are you going? Oh, put your finger in that, huh? Yeah. Oh. Anyone wants to eat that. Don't eat that. You have a bottle. Yeah, bottles are much better.